Hello everyone, today I'm hoping to get working on my potatoes. It's past the middle of May and I still don't have my potatoes in, so you can see behind me we have these ridges in a good while now at this stage and I'm only getting round to it. So I'm going to start the process today and we'll see how far I get on. Okay, so we're on day 2 of planting potatoes. So I have the 4 ridges covered and I have holes burnt into 2 of the ridges so far. I'm just going to show you the different varieties of potatoes that I'm growing this year and just talk you through what I'm going to do, and then I'll just speed it up because it'll be a slow process, I'm sure, at this stage. So these are all the varieties of potatoes that I'm growing. I probably have far too many here, but this is Carolus. So I have a total of 10 kilos of seed potato of Carolus. These are my main crop and have been my main crop for the last several years, and I'm pretty happy with the way they've... the dog is just full of beans this morning after getting let out. So I've never had a problem with the Carolus before. They've always grown quite well for me. Last year was a bit of an exception because the soil here just was pretty poor, to be honest. So giving them I'm still growing them again this year because like I said, normally they have given me great crops. So I decided this year then as well to try a few different crops. So I have my Charlottes. Now you can see they're all they've grown up quite sprouty. So that's the Charlottes just over there. I have some of these planted in the polytunnel, but I have the remainder of them here to go in. So I'll get an early crop from the polytunnel crop, and then hopefully successionally I'll have potatoes then for the whole summer up until probably October. So the Charlottes, you can see they're quite sprouty because they're actually in that bag. Seemingly when they're getting no light, they'll send out those white sprouts, and all of those potatoes there were in a bag of some sort, whereas these potatoes here were in no bag, so would have got a small amount of light, and you can see they have much smaller sprouts on them, which is actually better for planting. A lot of people will say that potatoes need to be chitted, and chitted, spelled C-H-I-T-T-E-D, just means that they're left out in light conditions with warmth. Of course, you don't want them getting frost, but they start to send out little green sprouts, or little green growths even. They're not even sprouts like the long sprouts that you see here on these. They're just little stubby green sprouts that come on your potatoes, and all that really does is speed up the process of them growing. So they have already started to sprout when you are putting them in the ground, and this is obviously, it's more ideal, or at least it'll get you a crop faster, but I don't find it's absolutely necessary. For a start, with the amount of potatoes that I'm growing, I don't really have somewhere where I can set them all out that they'll get sprouting. I mean, even the greenhouse will still get frost in March and April. So I find it much more beneficial to just stick them straight in the ground. Other people you will see cutting their potatoes and allowing them to callus over on the cut ends to help extend their seed potatoes. This is something I've never done, and for the simple reason that the more you divide the tuber, the less food there is for, because that's what the tuber is. The tuber is the food for the sprouts to grow in the initial stages. So I just find cutting the potato or dividing the potato to get more seed is defeating the purpose, in that it's lessening the supply of food that the sprouts have to grow in the initial stages. So, and that's another reason why I don't do that. So basically, you're going to see me planting these potatoes now through the mypex. So you see now I burnt the holes in the mypex, and I'm just putting the potato down. Now I put it down quite deep, about 4 to 6 inches, and that'll be it. There'll be no earthing up of these potatoes. To be honest, I've never earthed up potatoes anyway. It's a labour intensive job when you have several ridges of potatoes and so much else to do in the garden. It doesn't exactly get to the top of the priority list for me. So I suppose you could say this is an easier way of growing potatoes. Now there's a lot of prep work involved in putting down the mypex and burning the holes and whatever. But like with my onions and garlic earlier in the year, burning the holes in this mypex will mean that I'll have this sheet of mypex for the ridges every year. So that's just an initial task at the very beginning, but every year I'll be using these same sheets of mypex, and so next year won't be just as labour intensive. Oh, you my friend. You my friend. Oh, you good girl. You're my good helper, aren't you? You going to help me? Cookie Mouse, where's your head? Where's your head? Good girl, you're full of beans. You're full of beans. So hopefully this is an easier way of growing potatoes and makes it more realistic to get a decent crop of potatoes. I always say the less work we can get away with, the better in the garden, because there's always another job to replace what you've just saved yourself doing. But it just means you can grow more food, and that's what I'm all about. Grow as much food as I possibly can over these next few months, preserve it and store it if possible, and enjoy what we can only eat fresh in the moment in the summertime. So if you have any questions about the way I'm planting these potatoes, I would ask you to put them down below in the comments. I'm almost always thinking afterwards when I watch back the video, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that. So please feel free, if you have questions, put them down below, and I will get back to them and answer them if I know the answers. And if not, maybe some of the rest of you can help out as well. So before I forget to go through the rest of the varieties that I'm growing, like I said, Carolus is my main crop and always my big star every year. But this year I just decided to try out a few more varieties just to see how they perform as well. And they're all organic seed potatoes that I ordered. So this is a variety called Twister. I think that is a main crop as well. I think everything else is main crop or maybe secondarily. So I think Allouettes, which is this potato here, Allouette can be considered a secondarily potato or a main crop. So I'll probably be growing it on as a main crop, to be honest, because by the time I'm finished with the Charlottes, it'll be time to, they'll have had enough time to be grown on for main crops. So my other variety is Sarpo Mira. So Sarpo Mira, Twister and Allouette. And I know my sister has grown Allouette last year and found them to be a very tasty potato and a good performer as well. And productive, which is the main, well, apart from taste, productivity is a main good consideration. So those three varieties are new to me: Allouette, Sarpo Mira and Twister. I'm going to have to get used to those names even. Now I ordered these probably back in February and I'm only getting round to them now. Well, they weren't delivered until March, of course. A lot of the online companies won't deliver them, even though you have them ordered months in advance. They won't deliver them until it's close to time to planting them. Now, of course, I'm late planting mine. So most of you probably already have all your potatoes in the ground already. As usual, I'm lagging behind. But it's not unusual here in this area to be planting potatoes out in May. Firstly, the weather usually takes the ground so long to dry up after usually a wet winter and spring, so there wouldn't be any point in planting them out much earlier. Now some people, if they're on drier areas of land, will get them out earlier. It could be if they've good well draining soil, but even at that you're still taking the risk of frost and even still the risk of rotting due to flooding and just being really wet. This ground here is hard to manage in that it be absolutely sopping wet 1 minute and a couple of dry days and it's dry as a bone. So I'm hoping over time to work on that way by adding organic matter to the soil, so that it helps it drain better when it's wet and hold on to moisture better when it's dry. So it's just pure hard clay here, real claggy clay. Not ideal conditions for growing potatoes or any vegetables for that matter. So this is my third year growing here, and I'm hoping that adding in this mushroom compost, which you've seen me doing just in the last video, I'm hoping the mushroom compost helps to lighten the soil, and obviously it's organic matter added to the soil, so that's going to be helpful. In between the ridges, so in between the ridges here, I have a couple of piles of wood chips where I hope, well, it's really wood shavings more so than wood chips, but I'm hoping to put them down in the walkways to try and keep the weeds down. So you can see the weeds are actually growing in there already, like, and it's about it's almost 2 weeks sitting here with these ridges prepped, well, before I put the Mypex on, obviously yesterday. So the weeds won't be long taking over, and that has been one of the problems in the last couple of years, is the weeds taking over. And to be honest, it's too big of an area. Like you can see, we don't have the ridges completed here. We will keep adding more as time allows to the space. I'm hoping to get 10 overall ridges, but it just takes time to get them all done. So I'll start planting and see how we get on after that. Any extra ridge that we get's a bonus. But yeah, the weeds don't belong taking over, which is what disheartened me in the last couple of years growing in this space, the weeds and the work that it would be to weed it. And like you can see, even there's lots of stones lying on it as well. But I have said 100 times I'm all about easy gardening. I could come out and break my back removing stones and pulling weeds, but it wouldn't give me much of a love of gardening, to be honest, and I'd be I'd probably give up to be honest. So rather than giving up, I've decided to just make it easier. They say work smarter, not harder, and that's definitely a motto I go by. So like I said, this is an experiment growing with the Mypex this year. I'm hoping it's a game changer for me. I've seen other people doing it and had great success with it, so hopefully it'll be the same here. Now in the summer I am thinking I will probably need to actually set up a watering system. Now it's a big investment in the first year, of course, a watering system. So I'm not sure if I'll get round to it this year. It's on the to-do list, but whether I actually get to do it or not is another story. It can be difficult watering this place because I've tried sprinklers and everything, but once the plants get to a certain height, sprinklers just get a little bit more difficult to be effective in watering. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, getting the watering system. I mean, it's not a sprinkler system, a drip system would be the most efficient here. I'm just not quite sure how it'll work because this is on such a slope. It's hard to know how effective it'll be, so I need to do a bit more research on it first, as well as saving up the money to actually invest in it, because you're certainly talking a couple of €100 to do it right. But like I said, if it's effective, if it's going to work, it's a good investment in saving time out standing with a hose and watering each ridge individually, especially if I get the 10 ridges, which I'm hoping to get. Okay, so I finally have that job done. Times like this you find out how unfit you are. So all in all, I have probably a good full day's work in this project, but I suppose considering what I'll probably get out of it, it's not actually that much. Now obviously there's more work in the harvesting as well, but hopefully that'll be a bit easier this year too, with no weeds in the way, and I'm hoping the Mypex will help to keep the soil nice and soft as well and not get compacted. And of course the fact that it is mushroom compost sitting on top of the soil, it should be good enough and easy to work through to harvest the potatoes. So I figured out my planting schedule. I set them all on top of the ridges just to see how far they'd go. Didn't plant all my Carolus. I think I've used 5, 6, 7. I've probably used 7 kilos of Charlotte seed potatoes, so I have about 3 kilos left. I'll be able to give them away to my sister. I know she was running short of seed potato as well, so they won't go to waste. Now I could of course put in another ridge off them, but I think I'm going to have enough in the 4 ridges that I have. I'm just looking, I'm covered in dirt here too. So 2 full rows of Carolus, these 2 outer ones, and then the other 2 ridges are pretty much divided, not exactly half of a row each, but for the most part roughly a half a row each of the Twister, Sarpo Mira, Charlottes and Allouette. So I'm excited to see how these turn out. I did see the Allouette before with my sister. I have seen Sarpo Mira grown, but I haven't actually grown them myself either. Twister, completely new variety, and if I'm not mistaken, completely new altogether. A new organic seed potato variety that has just been developed. So Carolus was the same a few years ago and I loved it, so maybe Twister will be the same, who knows. But I have had a good learning curve while I'm been planting this. It took me a while to find my rhythm of planting. So most labour intensive jobs, it takes a while to find your rhythm, but eventually I did. So I have absolutely zero worries about these potatoes growing. I'm confident that I'll get a harvest. So while it is experimental, it's not experimental to the extent that I don't know if I'm going to get a harvest. So pretty confident of a harvest, but the things I'll be looking out for are well, productivity for a start, and even I'm having doubts now about the size of the holes that I burned. I'm wondering, are they big enough? I'm fairly confident that the potatoes, even if they're not directly underneath the hole, which the majority of them are, but I still think that the plant will find its way to the light anyway, so I'm fairly confident in that way. But again, like, that's part of the experiment, is figuring out whether it'll work like that or not. The other one is I actually didn't get them planted as deep as I'd have liked, so the majority of them are only about 3 to 4 inches deep. But I don't think that'll be a problem. The potatoes will grow outward and downward, so I'm pretty sure that they'll be fine. Like I said earlier, I'm not worried about not earthing them up. I don't normally earth up potatoes anyway, but I think the black mulch, if nothing else, actually that will be an improvement, because I think the black mypex will act as mulch. The main reason for earthing up potatoes is to, like I said, cover up the ones. So when a potato starts to swell, it's kind of pushing up naturally out of the ground, and so it starts to peep through the soil, and the sun will then hit it and turn it green. Now there's lots of talk that green potatoes are poisonous, and yes, they are, but it would take an awful lot to actually poison someone for a start. But apart from the fact that it's poisonous, they don't actually taste nice. So I'll often throw a potato, like with maybe a slight amount of green on the skin, into the pot, and like you can get the taste of it. It's not nice, so you don't want any of your potatoes going green, not just for the fact that they'd be poisonous. So that's where I think the black mypex will be an advantage, because they'll block the light when the potatoes do push up out of the ground. So from that point of view, it's saving me earthing them up. Not that I was doing it anyway, but so yeah, look, it still remains to be seen how successful this is. I've seen other people do it with good success, but like everything else, it'll just be a bit of a learning curve. So I have learned how many potatoes I can get in each. So most of these have about 70 holes burned, roughly about 70 holes burned in each of these ridges. So it takes about 3.5 kilos of potatoes to fill each row. So I will at least know that for next year. Again, it depends on the actual variety as well. I noticed that too, and I will be taking note of all these things in a garden journal, and it is a good idea to take note of these things. You think you'll remember, but you won't. So the Twister was a larger seed potato. Sarpo Mira was a larger seed potato. So they didn't actually take up as much room as I thought. So both of those went into one ridge, and I still have space at the end of the ridge. So they weren't quite a full ridge. So if I want to fill the ridge, if they're successful this year and I want to grow them next year and grow a full row of them, I will need about 5.5 kilos of potatoes of those varieties. Whereas the Charlottes and the Carolus were a smaller seed variety, and they went a lot further. So anyway, I'll be watching out now for these to start sprouting. I'm probably thinking about 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, for them to start showing up. though it is a good bit warmer. I just really need a good shower of rain now. And while in general I'm not hoping for rain, it'd be handy to save me watering these. So if it doesn't rain in the next 3 or 4 days, I'll have to water them in. You know, we're in Ireland, we don't usually have to worry too much about watering, but yeah, when you're growing vegetables you realise how little it actually rains. So if you've enjoyed watching this video, hit the thumbs up button down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.